Welcome back, viewers. This is Aarti, your host for today's podcast, Pick a Brain, presented by Upgrade Skills, in association with Onset Filming and sponsored by Expo Magic. Today, we are discussing something critical but often overlooked: anti money laundering or AML, and how it directly impacts businesses, especially in regulated sectors. To break this down, we have Rukesh Nayak, an expert in domain of AML compliance with over 25 years of experience in financial services and consulting. Hello Mr. Rukesh, welcome to our show.
Thank you very much for inviting me over for this podcast. Happy to be here.
Pleasure is ours. Everyone wants to know about AML, and can you please explain it to us in simple terms?
AML, simply put, where the English language goes, it says anti-money laundering, and there's one more word attached to it, that's compliance. So it's anti-money laundering compliance, keeping your records straight so that no wrong kind of money can enter the system through your business. That's what AML compliance is all about.
How has AML compliance evolved in recent years, especially in UAE?
Well, if you talk of anti-money laundering, the word has been around, the process has been around throughout the world, and almost every country has a FIU, Financial Intelligence Unit, and anti-money laundering compliance laws, especially banks. Even in the UAE, the anti-money laundering compliance laws were applicable to certain sectors, and they were regulated by the Central Bank of UAE. This group was known as LFIs, Licensed Financial Institutions, and these covered banks, exchange houses, and insurance brokers. However, in 2018, one more law came, which was known as the Federal Decree Law Number 10 of 2018, which has obligation to certain more sectors to follow the anti-money laundering compliance law in the UAE, and this group was known as DNFBP, designated non-financial businesses and professions. Now, who are these sectors which were obligated to follow this law? Real estate brokers, gold and diamond jewelers known as dealers in precious metals and stones, auditors and accountants, the CA firms that we have around. Then company service providers, we call them PROs and company incorporation companies, and lawyers and notaries. Now these people were obligated to follow the AML compliance law in the UAE since 2018, and in November 2025 the law was amended to include gaming companies as well in the AML gamut to follow and oblige to the AML compliance regulations in the UAE. So it's gradually spreading its wings to sectors which need to be regulated in terms of money flow from outside the country, or particularly the source of funds.
What does being AML compliant actually mean for these businesses in practical terms?
In practical terms, when you say you are AML compliant, it simply means that you need to follow the law and maintain records and framework as per the guidelines mentioned by the regulator. Now, continuing on what I said earlier, these 5 sectors are regulated by the Ministry of Economy. Unlike the Central Bank of UAE for the earlier sectors, the Ministry of Economy has guidelines on how to keep your framework so that it is compliant. Again, I would like to highlight here that AML compliance is applicable only to these 5 sectors and not to other sectors, but it's a federal law. So from Abu Dhabi to Fujairah, whether it's a mainland organization or a free zone company, they have to follow this if they fall in these particular categories in terms of their activities. Now, there are different rules and regulations laid down by the guidelines, according to which you have to maintain certain processes, certain data, which will make you AML compliant here in the UAE.
What are the minimum AML requirements for these businesses must implement immediately?
Yeah, so if you get down to the rules and regulations, first things first, these organizations need to register with the authority as obligating DNFBPs. What this means is similar to how you register a corporate tax or a VAT. You need to register your organization for AML compliance on a portal called as Go AML, and this is regulated by the Ministry of Economy. Once you have your organization registered on the portal, you designate a compliance officer, and any communication to the ministry in terms of reporting or otherwise has to be done through this portal through your login, and you have to accordingly work around it. This is the first thing. Second thing is they need to have a AML policy and procedure document in place. This is like a SOP document which will highlight what processes you are following for AML compliance as per the guidelines given. You need to have a comprehensive AML policy document in place. And the third thing is you need to have an AML training in place for all the employees of the organization. When I say all the employees of the organization, it is mandatory and a training record has to be maintained for this training for everybody. So this is the minimum requirement: registration, manual and training even before the start of client onboarding.
What penalties or risks do business face if they fail to comply?
See, in as much as the guidelines are laid out, the penalties for non-compliance are also very well laid out. In the earlier law from 2018, the minimum penalty starts with 50,000 dirhams, and there are 26 different violations. And if you get all of them wrong, 4 million is the total penalty. So I always say that if you park your vehicle in the UAE, you better pay your parking fee, which is just 2 dirhams or 4 dirhams. Right now in some places maybe 6 dirhams as well, to avoid a fine of 100 to 150 dirhams. So that's how you look at it. Be compliant and have your processes and framework in place so that you don't get any penalty.
So it's better to be compliant rather face these challenges.
Absolutely.
We hear a lot about letter of concern. What is this about?
Yes, basically this is something which I am also interested to let you and people know through this podcast, is that earlier, as I mentioned, the law started in 2018, which was called as Federal Decree Law number 10 of 2018, and the Cabinet Decision 20 of 2019 implemented this law. In November 2025, the law was amended, modified, and the new law is Federal Decree Law number 10 of 2025, and the Cabinet Decision number 134 of 2025 says that this needs to be implemented. Ever since that, there are some additional requirements as per the guidelines, and this letter of concern particularly highlights that since the law is modified, all the obligating organizations need to be as per the new and the current framework. Now, this letter of concern is received by certain organizations, of course the DNFPBs, these 4-5 sectors which we spoke about, and this is based on their surveys, inspections and so many other processes carried out by the ministry to check whether the compliance framework was in place, and this letter is to address them that they need to be absolutely compliant as per the new and the modified framework. This is what the letter of concern is all about. Going deep into what this says is, this says that you need to highlight and have your processes in place under 6 different sections. The letter explains everything in absolute detail, and once you modify and bring your framework to the current standard, current system, you need to send a declaration letter saying that you have complied to all the requirements as mentioned in the letter of concern.
So let's say if they have received a letter of concern, what should be their response?
They should immediately look into their compliance framework to see whatever the letter of concern elaborates in terms of, let's say, the policy and procedures, the processes of customer due diligence, the training records, all these things, whatever has been highlighted in the letter, they need to immediately respond to the modifications and send a letter of declaration back to the ministry from where the email has come saying that we have complied along with the attachments, and they have 30 days to do that from the date of the receipt of the email.
Is there any deadline for this?
Yeah, they have to complete it within 30 days from the date of receipt of email.
How can they be compliant? Is there any daily rituals or monthly drill that they have to keep up with their obligations?
Absolutely. This is an ongoing process. So as I mentioned earlier, when you ask me what are the minimum requirements, it is about registration, manual and training. But they have an ongoing process to be followed when they onboard each and every client. For example, let's go through these steps. Once you finalize a client, you need to collect the KYC documents from the client and a signed and filled KYC form which has numerous declarations. Using this KYC form, which is filled and signed by the client, and the KYC document as per the background, you need to do a background screening of the client in one of the AML screening softwares. Now this is necessary because you need to screen the client in terms of his background, whether he has any sanctions, whether he is banned in any country, whether he is a politically exposed person. All these requirements are needed to be checked, and the outcome of the AML screening from the AML screening software will highlight these aspects of the client. He may be a clean client, or he may be a client who has some background which is objectionable from a law standpoint, for which you need to do the AML screening. Once you have the outcome of the AML screening, accordingly you need to take steps, maybe some additional documentation, maybe some additional declarations, which are all highlighted in your compliance policy, how to go about it, what to do, and what evidential documents you need to mention and maintain. All this you need to do. Once you are ready with all this, only then and then you need to go for the business transaction. So if you look at a typical example of a real estate broker, once the client finalizes the property, these processes need to be done before completing the transaction, let's say registration of the title deed or any other transaction which means business. And this is the first rule of AML compliance. Do the due diligence before entering into the transaction. That's the rule number one which needs to be followed, because unfortunately for the DNFPB, if he completes the transaction and then goes for the due diligence, and to his misfortune, if something wrong comes out in the due diligence, he may have to face penalties and other implications. So, and it's a rule by law that first do the due diligence and then go for the transaction. Now, as you mentioned, daily ritual, this has to be done for every client. Even after the client has completed the business transaction, you need to do ongoing monitoring of the client after his completion of transaction as well. So that's the daily ritual we are talking about. So you need to do ongoing monitoring of all the clients who have been already onboarded, because it is possible that the same client may come back to you for another transaction. So you need to know the details through ongoing monitoring. So this is something which is a regular thing, and every month you need to make a report about your AML status. Some organizations make it quarterly. It's a report which goes from a compliance officer to the senior management. So these are all the rituals or the processes which one needs to follow if they have to sleep peacefully after the day's work.
Completely understand on that. So we're talking about employee training. How important is this training, and where do businesses go wrong on this?
Yeah, basically what the law says, and it's an acceptable fact, that AML compliance awareness should be for everybody in the organization, not only for the sales people who do the front ending with the client. It is necessary for everyone, because the responsibility for compliance starts with the senior management, and there is a designated compliance officer who ensures that the AML program is properly implemented in the organization. So under this, every employee should understand the importance of money laundering, because prevention of money laundering is everybody's responsibility. From that standpoint, and also from the guideline, training is mandatory for every employee of the organization, and the training record has to be maintained. Additionally, the ministry and the government bodies are also conducting different webinars and encouraging people to attend those webinars to have more awareness and have the right knowledge about anti-money laundering compliance requirements.
So this goes to also the new employee that joins the organization.
Absolutely. The new employee should be immediately given the training. That's a requirement. And a refresher training is normally recommended every 6 months so that people are aware of what's happening in the compliance world and how they can best course correct if there is anything required to be done and things like that.
Mr. Rukesh, you have created AML training on Upgrade Skills website. So what inspired this?
I have been imparting training, AML training to organizations, and I realized that when I go to one place, I am there at one place and I can do only one training at a time. Now technology is catching up. Imagine all of us without smartphones, and now without a smartphone we cannot do anything. So I am also catching up with technology and creating my own course content on Upgrade Skills so that it can reach more people and without me being present, but my content, my training, that can be talking to the people who want to take training, and this can spread across and help the country to be compliant and help more and more people to be compliant. And this is one way of spreading knowledge and something which is very much required in these days when it comes to AML laws. So creating a training program, the main trigger was to reach more and more people at the same time.
So this training, how is it going to help the businesses and professionals apply AML practically?
Absolutely. What will happen is whatever training they need to take as AML compliance is one part of the story, but I have tried to make these trainings simpler and something which is like a call to action, where I have discussed practical aspects on how to undertake the process of AML compliance step by step, so that everybody in the organization and especially those who are in charge of this, like for example in case of real estate, the front end salespeople need to collect the KYC documents or sign KYC form. So I have made things pretty simpler for people to understand and start implementing it immediately after the training so they can be compliant. So
Very
simplicity is the key word in my training.
That's very nice. Very easy way you are creating for the complex thing, right? So one piece of advice for entrepreneurs on AML.
See, AML is something, if you are obligating organization, it's a part of your system just like any other function. Because even beyond the laws, we are operating businesses, ethical businesses. If you are operating ethical businesses, the money that flows into your business also has to be ethical, free of any crime or any wrongdoing, which it is possible that it may happen that some may try to sneak it with the wrong kind of money. In the training, I do discuss different ways how money laundering is carried out. So one needs to be aware, one needs to safeguard their business in the right way and expand. So it's an integral part of your business model if you are an obligating AML organization in the UAE.
So there are lots of understanding that's going around about AML. So this is a one myth about AML that you want to bust.
Only thing that AML is not a rocket science. It's a pretty simpler process. You'll understand it from the training. You'll also understand it from your manual. It's a very simple process. Only thing is what we listen, what we see, and what we suspect could be wrongdoing. It needs to be documented properly so that a trail remains and organizations can have the data in place. And there are different reporting requirements of the ministry in certain cases, like suspicious transaction report, suspicious activity report. Very specific to real estate, there is something called as the REAR, Real Estate Activity Report. These reports are to be submitted in case of certain events that occur with the client. For example, if REAR report, Real Estate Activity Report, is a report if a client is paying more than 55,000 dirhams in cash as a payment, physical cash, then that clients need to be reported within 15 days to the ministry through the GoML portal where the organization has registered. So this is an obligation. So this is something which, coming back to the question, there is a myth about whether it is complicated. Rules are pretty simple, actions are pretty simple. Only thing is you need to follow so that you are totally compliant. So in case you have an inspection from the ministry, you are ready from day one. So that's also about the monthly drill or the daily ritual, that if things are in place, then you have everything to show if the authority comes for inspection or any other requirements. Like for example, in December, January, even as we speak, that survey is on. So they are asking for certain data from the DNFPBs. If you have everything ready, you can fill it in one day and submit it across.
That's beautiful. So in simple words, we can say train and then keep the documentation in ready and then complete the process in place.
Absolutely. It's like your daily ritual of going from home to office, or keeping your accounting in place, keeping your audit in place, keeping your tax in place, keep your AML compliance in place as well.
Yes, like that's how, like our tagline says, educate, elevate and excel. So it's like educate yourself first and then your employees, and keep the process in place.
Absolutely. If you educate, then you will know. If you know, you will do. If you do, you will be compliant.
That's right, absolutely. Mr. Rukesh, that was an incredible, insightful session. Thank you for breaking down such a complex topic into something simple, practical and actionable. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure being here. And I hope this podcast and your Upgrade Skills platform reach maximum people so that they can take the most advantage of what is necessary in this current world.
Thank you, Mr. Rukesh, for your time.
Thank you so much.
We have a token of appreciation. Thank you for your time, Mr. Rukesh.
Thank you
This
so
is a
much.
token of appreciation from our side.
Thank you for having me over to speak on a topic which I am most passionate about.
For the viewers, if you have further questions for Mr. Rukesh, please connect with him for a complimentary discovery session to know where you stand and how to go about it. If you find this episode valuable, and if you want to deepen your understanding of AML and build real-world compliance skills, do check out Rukesh training programs on our platform Upgrade Skills. Thank you for listening. Pick a brain. Until next time, educate, elevate, and excel. This is Aarti signing off.